sun was setting in the west. The birds were singing on every tree. All of nature seemed inclined for to rest, but still there was no rest for me. Farewell to Nova Scotia, the sea-bound coast. Let your mountains dark and dreary be. But when I am far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me? I grieve to leave my native land. I grieve to leave my comrades all. My aging parents who I always held so dear, and the bonny, bonny lass I do adore. Farewell to Nova Scotia, the sea-bound coast. Let your mountains dark and dreary be. But when I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me? Here we go, drums. The drums are beating, the wars do alarm. The captain calls and we must obey. So farewell, farewell to Nova Scotia's charms. For it's early in the morning, I am far, far away. Farewell to Nova Scotia, the sea-bound coast. Let your mountains dark and dreary be. But when I'm far away, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me? I have 3 brothers and they're at rest. Their arms are folded upon their breast. But a poor simple sailor just like me must be tossed and driven on the dark blue sea. Farewell to Nova Scotia, the sea-bound coast. Let your mountains dark.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and
Well,
you're
you're
watching
watching
accesstv.org.
Briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh or a wish for me?
Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, it's Mike and Claudine. Mike and Gary and Claudine are both going to talk a little bit about their lives. I'm going to let her introduce herself. Claudine?
Well, my name's Claudine Langille, and I was born up the road in Hartford Hospital, and I lived in Newington as a kid, and I don't know when I first met Mike. It might have been in Brock's.
Oh,
in
gee,
West
who
Hartford.
knows? Well, anyway, we've been together playing and goofing around together for quite a few years. But I'm going to start asking a few questions. So tell us about your music, when you started, how all this started, that you get into Irish music.
Okay, well, I always loved music, and I didn't realize that there was anything unusual. I thought everybody was as passionate about music as I was. So, you know, I was kind of head over heels into the radio and rock and roll and everything. But at some point, first I heard the Minstrel Boys at Brock's, and I was really attracted to Irish music then. But it was when I moved to Boston to go to college that I heard the group called the Battering Ram from Dublin. It was Declan Hunt, Shay Walker, and Johnny Began, and they were sitting in the Plough and Stars in Cambridge, and they're sitting there at a long table, and they're just playing tunes and singing, And that was the first time I ever heard a session. And I thought, this is great. You know, they're not using microphones and they're just singing for the love of it. And Johnny Began was actually singing Farewell to Nova Scotia, which was, he was playing it on a banjo mandolin. And I just started trying to do what they were doing. After that, I played on the street.
So when did you go professional?
In the 80s. I had been to Ireland in 1979. I went with a band. I wouldn't call us professional. The guys were from Shantala in Galway, and we called ourselves Shantalav. And we went busking around the U.S., and then they said, we're doing really well. Let's go to, we went to New Orleans and Key West, and we went to California. We were bumming around and playing music, having a great time, though. And they said, let's go to Europe and try it. And the flights were really cheap then. So that's what we did. We flew, and we went to London, and Johnny had a brother there. We went there for a while, and then they wanted to go to Paris. For some reason, we got away with playing in front of Notre Dame. And did quite well and had a really good time. And then they got homesick, the lads. And they said, we got to go to Galway. So that's what we did, and I ended up staying there a year. So I was playing music 8 hours a day at that point, because we'd get up, go to the pub, play a session, have lunch, maybe go back for supper. And then we had gigs every night. And the way the gigs were then, you got £5 a piece, Irish pounds. You got as many pints of Guinness as you could drink. And if you missed a night, you lost the gig. There was always somebody there waiting to take it. So it was every single night we played like 7 to 10 or something. So you know, I played a lot, and Dedanon lived there at the time. And Charlie Piggott was a tenor banjo player that I really admired, and I followed him quite a bit. You know, then we couldn't, if we wanted to learn a tune, we'd bring a little cassette recorder and tape it, and we couldn't slow it down or anything. We just had to keep playing it over and over on the cassette and try to pick up all the licks and everything. So it was a challenge, but I loved it. And I stayed a whole year and did a bunch of playing there.
Well, I think we first met when we did the Touchstone reunion.
Oh yeah, at the
That
Mark
was
Twain.
it, the Mark Twain House, with our wonderful hero, P.B. O'Donnell. For those that haven't been able to get involved yet, this is the whole series we're doing here is to honor P.B., our hero, our mentor, our guy, our friend.
The best.
Man with 1,000 friends. But you'll hear that song. Song was actually written by Claudine. We'll talk about that soon. But we slapped together a lot of stuff. We tell people that don't know how I met P.B. I met P.B. of all places. For old fish eaters like us, we met at a Protestant church, Emmanuel Congregational Church. They brought in a guy, this Scottish guy, McDonald, whatever his name was. He was doing a show. He traveled around like you did. And the McCauley family said to me, you got to meet the real McCoy. Got to meet the real McCoy. Who's the real McCoy? P.B. O'Donnell. You guys will get along. So we met. And out of that came a lot of crazy adventures, and we did some things. And I happened to be president, I guess, or whatever it was, of the Farmington Avenue Business Association. I figured, let's do a bunch of gigs. We had a little money, so we set up 4 or 5 Irish-themed gigs at the Mark Twain House.
Yeah.
And that's where you came in.
Yeah. Well, it took me a while. I had one thing that happened he said when I went professional, I ran into Trina Nihonal from the Bothy Band, and she was over in America trying to find, some music situations. And we ran into each other in Carrboro, North Carolina, and we didn't really know each other, but I said, oh, there's Trina, come on up, and we sang Do You Love an Apple? And then we ended up having a band together for about 5 years called Touchstone. And that was when I lived down south, and then I moved back to the area. because I was helping my brother with electric motor repair business, Reliable Electric Motor. And I used to see this ad in the paper this is after Touchstone broke up, and it would say live Irish session with P.V. O'Donnell at City Steam. And I used to see it, and I was just terrified to go on my own because I didn't know what it would be like. I didn't really know anybody in the music scene here because I had been away from Connecticut for many, many, many years. So I ended up, I went to Cape Breton to the Celtic Colors Festival. And my friend Otis says, that's P.V. O'Donnell and his wife Marion. And we were in this big crowd, and it was really great Irish music. Dedanan was there, Liz Carroll, a bunch of, really great show. And I saw him in the lobby, but then I didn't see him again. And I thought, you know what? They look really nice. I'm going to go. So when I came back, I got the courage to come to the session. And it was, it was up here, and I didn't know where to park. And I walk up with my banjo, and somebody was hassling me on the way walking there. And I walked inside, and Marion she grabbed me by the arm and said, welcome, everything's going to be okay. They made sure I had a seat and a drink and a microphone, and I just like, boom, we were all the best of friends immediately.
Let me tell you the history of that session. Few people know. PB and I became like brothers, and we had great times. And he said, let's do something spectacular, PB. So back the time I was on the city council, which helped open a couple doors. Back then the council was all powerful. 5 votes was everything. And I was the 5th vote. Well, people listen to me, I don't know why, but if you're the 5th vote in the city council and you got the vote on the budget, guess what? People pay attention. Anyhow, they had just closed the G. Fox building, the wonderful old store we used to have. Yeah. And it was a monstrous, cavernous place. The first floor was 50,000 square feet. And the guy who's there was kind of taking care of it, said, you guys ought to do something here. I said, PB, let's do something. So we decided at St. Patrick's Day, must have been mid-96, 97, 95, I don't know, in there somewhere. So we did. Being on council, I made a few calls. I got a few donations, a few people to help out. We put in a stage. We had the whole 50,000 square feet. We got chairs and tables and banners and bunting, and PB lined up the music, and I got donations, and we were going to put on a fee-call. That's the name. I didn't even realize what one of those was until people said, we're going to call it a fee-call. Well, it was wonderful. It was the best setup you could have. We got a lot of publicity, wonderful place. I was notorious. PB was getting to be well known.
What year was that, Mike?
In the mid-90s.
Okay.
Right before the session, because here's what happened.
Yeah.
So we got City Steam to do the beer and Guinness to do the beer. And we got food from somewhere, Vito's, we got food from Vito's, and it was great. Then we had 4 nights right around St. Patrick's Day. It ice stormed every night. Every night it came down, and ice came down and coated everything. So we had like 200-300 people a night, which we were set up. I got a donation from Hubline for Bailey's. They said to me, how much are you going to use? And I said, we're going to have 5,000 people. So what did they give me? They gave me 5,000 shots of Bailey's. 5,000! Yeah,
That's very generous.
The equivalent of 5,000 shots of Bailey's. Well, we had 200 people. So what are we going to do to make up the money? Because there's a lot of money invested in this, it wasn't all donations. So what we did is, after the first night, disaster. So what we did is we raffled off Bailey's. 1 bottle, 2 or 3. There were going to be 3 winners every hour. The bottles of Bailey's. And you wrote your name. You wrote your name on your dollar bill. M. Jones. Joe Smith. You wrote your name on your dollar bill. You threw it into the hat.
That's brilliant.
And we went around and collected money. 200 people, if they kicked in $1 a piece, $200. We'd have $176, pretty good. Okay, Jones, come up, get your bottle. Smith, get 2 bottles. And the big winner is Melissa Murray. Here you go, 3 bottles. By the end of every night, you look out, and because we were pretty generous, they knew the people that give them a bottle. You look out, it was a sea of Baileys. And the end of that story was that they were so impressed at City Steam, despite a storm that was heroic storm to go out of the house. We still had people.
Yeah.
City Steam donated the beer, thank goodness, because we were going broke. And they started a session. That's how the session started. Ron Page.
And you think it was mid-90s or late 90s?
No, we started a session late 90s.
Okay.
96 or 7. It was right in that period.
Yeah, I didn't, it was later that I came on the scene.
Well,
I think
all
it had
those
been
years.
going for quite a while.
So that's how you first met Peavy.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, we just, it seemed like we had known each other forever, you know. He and Marion were just so nice, and you know, everybody there, it was just a great scene. And then, I'm not sure when was it because of the Erie Canal, or was the show that we did before that?
Now, let me tell you why it finally, here's another story for everybody, why it finally broke up. They had these young managers who were just kids. They didn't like the Irish music. The minute that the music would stop, they'd turn on that horrid rock. And you wanted to buy you a drink, or wanted to buy you a shot of, you know, Powers or something, you know? They'd turn on that music, and we'd ask them, please turn it down. I said, to hell with you. Peavy said, I'm never coming here again. Peavy will take care of it. I'm never coming again. You know, Peavy, never coming again. I said, let me take care of it. So I stood up, went over to the bar, got on the bar stool, and stood up and said, young man, you had better turn that music off. He says, I'll fight. You'll fight me, huh? And everybody turned to me and got quiet. Everybody's looking up, and I'm going, ever do that again, you know? And then Peavy quieted down. And, hey, how you doing? Peavy quieted down, and we kept going for a while. Then they did it again. Another young punk. We had a certain amount of beer Peavy could give away to the players. He went and he asked for another thing of beer, and the guy wouldn't give it to him.
Oh, yeah.
He said, look, the deal is, wouldn't give it to him. He walks out. Again, I had to save the day somehow. And I went, I got to fix the deal. The final insult happened, and Peavy would never go in there again. And Mary begged me to get him in there again. And that's when we ended up going down. First we went to Arch Street.
Arch Street, yeah.
Really was not set up correctly.
Well, they would have more than one thing happening at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's people singing Italian songs right in the next booth or something, you know, which was fine, but it didn't work for us.
The reason we got McKinnon's is there was a pool table in the front window. And Peavy said, I'll never compete with people playing pool. I'll never do that.
There's a song about that.
Is there really?
Yeah.
So I went to him and I said, look, if you move the pool table, he was always after me, Matt, Corey, to get Peavy there. And finally, you know, when all this happened, I was able to move the pool table in the back, and that's how it started.
Oh,
We were
that's
there
great.
lots and lots of years, you know.
Yeah.
That was really, really great, up till the end almost.
Well, Peavy didn't ask for much, for all his talent and for bringing all those people in and
Yeah.
all that fabulous music. But if he didn't get what he had been promised, then I don't blame him.
No,
He stood
was
up
tough
for himself.
that way. He was
Yeah.
tough. Now, remember when we went on the Erie Canal?
How could I forget?
Tell everybody a little bit about that.
Well, I love boats and, you know, just the whole scene. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but you know, I wanted to go down, and I just loved seeing the canal and the tugboats and all the stuff that was going on, and the locks and, you know, the whole bit. And so I was totally enthralled by the whole thing to begin with, you know, just being there. But we had a really nice. How many people were there that in our troupe?
That first year,
Yeah.
remember 2006 was the first year, and they they were doing a canal thing then, a real big thing about the canal, political thing.
Yeah.
So we fit in perfectly. John Callanan was the only real expert in all of the canal setup, all these bureaucrats. The only guy that could drive a boat, any kind of boat, was John. And he had been this guy, big burly guy, big beer belly, big burly guy. And I approached him, about this idea. And we got the gang together. I think we had, 30 of us or so.
It's a lot of musicians.
Traveling along.
A lot of
about half
instruments,
musicians.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got this, from you we got this, what is it, the big, what was that we got, the bus we got from you?
Oh yeah, the tour bus.
Tell about your tour bus.
Well, Rod, there's Rod over there. We got a tour bus, and the idea was, because we lived in Vermont, it was to rent it out to bands so that they could go to their gigs. And it was it was an experience. It was a beautiful bus. It was 1987, and it was really decked out inside. It was red and beige, and what's that? Oh yeah, the Charlie Daniels band had their marquee up on it. So we used it well for a while. We did rent it out, but for this trip. Who drove?
God, I don't
you
remember.
had a driver that you got.
I had a driver.
I mean,
yeah.
it's hard. It's a big bus.
Yeah. Imagine that first trip. You could never do this again. And I don't know how it helped again to be on city council. Ted, our friend here, knows. When you're at the city council and you're the fifth vote, you could do miracles. So somehow I got enough money to rent this bus. We did a CD, remember? Were you in the CD?
Yes.
We did a cellar of
live
CD.
CD, yeah.
Live CD. We had maybe 20 players on that anyway.
That was great, yeah.
The CD paid for most everything. This was when CDs were the big deal. And
Yeah.
it's all this stuff now,
It was a good CD.
Yeah,
too.
great. We have it here. We're going to try to figure out how to play it here one of these days.
Nobody has a player
Well,
anymore.
we made hundreds of those. Hundreds and hundreds. We made enough that night to pay for the whole damn thing and give us money. Then I got money here, money there, enough to get us going. We charged every gig maybe $300, $400, $500.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Every gig. Then we passed the hat. We sold CDs. We bummed our way all the way to Syracuse, one way or another, staying on. The first night we had so many of us, I slept on a tug. We filled up your thing.
Yeah.
And some people stayed here and there. I slept on a tug. Tony and I slept on a tug with a place to sleep about this big, We're the guys that work the tugs, sleep on these little things. We get in there. Of course, it wasn't hard to sleep after Waterford. Remember
Right.
the party?
Okay,
So
yeah.
all the big shots from the canal were there. All the state reps, the state senators, and U.S. congressmen, they're all there for this big party Waterford put on for us. And the music was great. They had food and drink, and great. Party went on. And that's how you sleep in a tugboat.
The day after. Well, I ended up on, it was a work boat. And it was they had come through all the lakes and canals and passageways, and they were resetting the markers, the channel markers. So they were really serious, and they were doing their job, and they said they could give us a lift, and it wasn't really that far up the canal, right?
Yeah.
So everything's going fine, and then this storm hits,
Oh,
and
geez.
it's like horizontal rain, and we see the floodgates opening up, and it was like nobody could stand outside, and we're all crowded in this tiny little where the guy's trying to. Oh, it was. It was pretty intense, and he was scared, I think.
Oh yeah, he was holding that boat steady. This old guy in a boat, he's shaking
Yeah.
and going this way, going that. Well, what happened is we rented one of these boats.
You were on the supply boat.
Yeah, I was on a supply boat. Yeah, that was cool.
Boru vodka. I remember.
Well, here's what happened. You see, again, with one of these connections you get on city council, we made a liquor connection through one of these local guys, and they gave us money, and they gave us a liquid refreshment. We had half keg of beer donated by somebody. We had those cows of wine. And we had more cases than we could carry of these various Irish liquors. Remember?
Yeah. Baru vodka. I still have the T-shirt and everything.
Baru vodka and Tullamore, how do you say that?
Dew.
Tullamore Dew and Powers and whatever else. Several cases of each on this boat, which was a canal boat. I wish I should have a picture.
That was small, too.
Small canal boat. We had 6 people living on that. But it only could do 6 knots upriver, and the water was coming down 8 knots. So that boat,
This is for real. It was such a storm.
that boat got stuck between the locks, and here we are in her thing and cars,
Yeah.
like a flotilla on the water and a flotilla up the road. And we're going from place to place to place. Canajoharie, Ilion, Schenectady area, Scotia, all the way up. Oh God, all these places we went. And I don't know, we had like a gig in the afternoon and a gig at night. Rome, we had a great big one. We finally met the boat in Rome. That damn boat cost $5,000. How I ever raised the $5,000, I'm not going to tell you. You know, but I raised
That was the
$5,000.
little one that you guys were on?
Yeah, I didn't get to ride on that. I managed to find places for people to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And then we all kind of met up and they had they threw some kind of a big party at that Irish club.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. What
that was
town
great.
was that?
Amsterdam. In
Okay.
Amsterdam, the Irish club had a big party for us. Just imagine that. On the road with a bunch of people like her and a bunch of bums like me, you know, rolling down the highway. Finally, we ended up in Syracuse with a famous bar with the little door. Remember? You didn't get
make
that
it
far.
that far. I had to go back to
You
work.
had to go back to work. And we had various people come and go. I mean, who could take off 10 days from the life other than me? You know, and PB came along for most of it, not all of it, you know.
Yeah.
And we just kept going and going and going. Hey, Frankie, there's Frank. There's the guy we should have taken along on the trip.
Right, a little something.
Oh, a little something.
Original.
What a guy. Ah, what a guy. Anyhow, so that's part of the story, but tell us more about your career.
Well, no, I was going to say that time when you were talking about the Touchstone reunion at the Mark Twain house. That's kind of interesting because we had been together in the early '80s, and we were doing really well. We were playing a lot of Canadian festivals, and like Philly Folk Festival, and we traveled across the country and made the circuit a couple of times, and then we finally broke up in about 1985. But Trina, the singer who played keyboards, Trina Nihonal, she and I were really close friends, and she moved first to Portland, Oregon, and then back to Dublin, Ireland. So we stayed in touch, and we had this Touchstone reunion, and it was Brian O'Donovan in Boston, who does WGBH radio. He kind of set this up. So it was Trina, Zan McLeod, Mark Roberts, and myself that were booked at this festival. And Mark Roberts, something happened and he couldn't be there. So we got Tommy Peoples.
Oh boy.
And Trina had played with him in the Bothy band, and they hadn't seen each other in a really, really long time. So here we are. They're having this little reunion on stage, and getting it was pretty amazing because they're both kind of quiet, and then they kind of hit it off. So he ended up coming to Hartford.
Let me interrupt a little bit about that. Tommy Peoples, PB said he was the best fiddle player in the world. Remember?
Yep, it was his
He would
fave.
show up at City Steam. This is the best guy in the world doing what he did, playing Donegal fiddle. He'd show up in the middle of nowhere. He'd just walk in and sit down with us. And Tommy Peoples is here.
That's
It's like
because
Elvis Presley showing up in a
He
bar
loved
somewhere.
Peavy, I'm sure.
Yeah, he and PB played together. We have that tape that I have to get copies for everybody, when the two of them did the duel together.
Yeah.
Oh man, what
Yeah.
a night!
And
yeah.
they're both from Donegal.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of made sense that they have the same sort of accent musically. So
So we had him. We had him We had what's his name with the Clancy brothers, Make 'em.
Yeah,
We had Make 'em. So we did
at
that.
that session.
That session.
Yeah,
and
I
we
wasn't
had,
there that
We
day.
had him at one of the shows.
Yeah.
We had 4 shows at Mark Twain. You know.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? Talk about your adventures down south. You're teaching.
Oh, down south?
What's the name of the place where you would go to teach?
Oh, you mean Guatemala?
No, didn't you teach down in
That's pretty far
Georgia?
south.
Where in the south did you do that? Name I can't pronounce.
Oh, in Chapel Hill, North Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my husband's from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and that was where the band Touchstone really, we hung and we stayed there, and our whole thing was a combination of Irish music, and Trina brought that really nicely into the mix. And then we had, Mark played 5-string banjo, and so we had some old-timey Appalachian music too. And it caught on really well, you know, as we were touring around. People just really loved it. I mean, Irish music is so infectious. And with a little bit of old-timey too, for the people that hadn't heard too much Irish, it worked great.
But
so.
you taught down there in that big...
Oh, Swannanoa Gathering, is that
that's
your...
it.
Yeah, that's...
Explain that. I can never pronounce it.
Swannanoa,
Swannanoa
it's
Gathering.
in the mountains of North Carolina, and it's at Warren Wilson College. And it's there's a lot of them across the country where they have teaching festivals, and they get various people that are known in their field to come and do a week-long thing of classes. So, you know, I might be teaching tenor banjo or how, you know, singing with a mandolin or something like that. So I did that quite a bit, and they get some really great people from Ireland and wherever. So there's Celtic Week, there's Traditional Song Week. Those are the ones that I was usually involved in. And,
Did you ever go over the Irish Alps over there? The Catskills?
oh, yeah.
You played the Catskills.
Lately, yeah. Well, I did with Touchstone, and then I went to the...
Explain to those that don't know. You know, over the Catskills, there's an area, Irish area. Well, fill it in a little bit about that area over there.
I don't know the history as well, but it's a settlement. It's almost like, I guess everybody went there for summer camp.
Yeah.
So it's a whole setup with hotels, and the space is used for teaching Irish music usually in July, I think,
Something like
beginning
that, yeah.
of July.
Yeah.
And they have great people there, and you can have sessions there, and it attracts a lot of people.
So you've done all this.
Well, I'm
You
old.
look back. You should do your own, you know, someday your own biography. You know.
Well, no, I would like to. We were talking about doing something like that ourselves. You know, if you had a space where you could set up and have, you know, attract. It's like a college is a good place because it has dormitories where people can stay. And then you can bring in people and teach, and you just have a lot of fun because everybody loves music and plays all the time, so it makes them happy.
Well, the PB's first CD. PB came here. His group broke up. The guys had to put their kids in college and that stuff. And PB comes to America. He bums around for a while from Canada, and his wife gets a job in Manchester. He has a devil of a time finding anybody to play as good as him. Right? Couldn't find partners.
He's a master.
He was a master, couldn't find partners. And after a while, we got him together with people, and it all kind of came together. He wanted to do a CD, but didn't have too much money. So I managed to get the old Cathedral School, the green room. Again, you know, it helps a little bit when you're involved in things, you know. The old green room where we met many times, the Knights of Columbus. It was green back then. It was a horrible green rug and old beat-up walls. Perfect for music. So his first CD he did was in the old green room because it was an abandoned school and a place where the music was like here.
Yeah,
You know.
nice.
So PV did his first CD, and then after we did, he played a few of them. I think we have one of those kicking around.
Which one was the first one? What was the name of that one?
That's the one with the cottage, I think. We have one around.
Is it Donegal Fiddler?
Gee, I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, it was something. That was
They're
fun.
all great.
Yeah, they're all
Beautiful.
great.
He started making one just before he died at our
Oh,
studio in Vermont. Yeah,
Huh.
with Janine Randall on the piano,
Wow.
and never really got it
Yeah, I
to
didn't
the.
get it finished.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa did a great, you'll see her work because we're going to have it all. She'll finish it one day, but she got a good start on it. It's all taped. And we're taping all these things as we're taping this. We're going to put them together as a set. I don't know what we're going to do with all this great stuff. Yesterday we had this McCormick stuff that was so terrific. Show about John McCormick, you know. And what we should do is you should gather up all your bits and pieces of your life, you know, and get some player friends together and just do it, you know. That's what we're doing here. No great planning, no big budget, you know. Any bum that can walk in, you know, we'll take them all, you know.
Well, Melissa did some stuff in our studio too. We nobody wanted to record anymore, you know, because they all have their home recorders and everything.
Yeah.
So we turned it into a performance space,
Hmm.
and we had Frankie Gavin.
Yeah.
He did a solo show there.
Huh.
And, Melissa filmed that. And then we had Haley Richardson, who's a tremendous young fiddler who was in Riverdance
Oh, boy.
just recently in London and in Dublin. So, I mean, everything, we had great music, didn't we? Yeah. And just to have it documented is wonderful.
Well, that's the part of this. We brought in a lot of good talent. We had Tom Cowan in here yesterday, the Morgans.
Yeah, he was great.
For those that don't know, there was a group called the Morgans that played around Hartford all over the place. And they're still all around. None of them are dead. They're all still hanging in. And they don't meet that often, but when they do, it's a huge thing. And they come here, and Tom Cowan was here last night. We have him on tape.
And he's from the Morgans?
Morgans,
That's,
yeah.
He said, I met you a long time ago. I think I was with Laureen, my niece, and we went and saw
Yeah,
the Morgans.
yeah.
Yeah.
They used to meet at Mad Murphy's Bazaar.
Yeah.
And the guy running it was Bizarre, Tom. He was one of the McCays, who I knew well. When they opened, they had an elephant parade. They managed to get elephants from somewhere. They paraded right down the middle of Farmington Avenue. No cops, no nothing. Right down the middle of Farmington Avenue. And had a big Irish hat on the elephant. And they paraded a bunch of musicians and a gaggle of people right down, and it came right down, had a big party in the middle of town. You know, no permits, no nothing, they just came down.
That would make a nice video.
That would have been I'm sure somebody taped it somewhere. But anyway, they would have, on Sunday nights, the Morgans would play. And Amelia Earhart, they come up with a song about Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, that's a
She
good
really knew
song.
how to fly. You know
Yeah,
that song.
yeah.
Yeah. And they would take paper airplanes and start throwing them around. And it got to be that everybody would show up with a huge bag of paper. They'd make the paper airplanes at a certain time. Amelia Earhart knew how to fly, and then paper airplanes, the whole place was full of paper airplanes.
It's pretty good. Sounds like a New Orleans kind of scene. or
Yeah,
something.
they were.
Elephants and paper airplanes.
And people were sitting there, and the tables were sitting on the thing. The place was probably 3 times the number of people that should have been there. People sitting on tables and standing on tables in the back, and those were the days. So they're still around. Don Snitty's still a great
Yeah, what
Don.
about Steve? Is he in it?
Steve is still around, yeah.
I mean, he was in that band too, right?
Yeah, it was Tony, Steve, Chris Morgan himself. That's what called the Morgan. He ended up inventing some computer thing and ended up in Boston. He's a multimillionaire. But he still plays with them. You know, they get $1,000 and split it up $200 a piece. He's happy with 200, and sometime he'll buy everybody drinks with him. But he's a great guy. So all this Irish
That's
music has
great.
been great stuff. It's been great friendships made out of
Oh,
this.
definitely, yeah.
Just imagine if we ever had a chance to go to Ireland together. Well, I did at a point. I got to go with Peavy.
You went with Peavy, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
And
that.
we took a guy and we filmed it, but the films, I'm trying to get him, films of that. We were always going to make a documentary out of it, but all of our lives changed. We never got to do it. But I got to go with Peavy.
Did he show you all his
We
his
did.
haunts and everything?
We did this in '98 for the Revolution, 1798, 200th anniversary. And as we talked earlier in all this, as he was walking down the street in New Ross, they yelled at him, "Hey, fiddler!" To PV. And PV'd wave with that big smile. One night we did 6 sessions. we started 5 sessions starting at 6 at night to 6 in the morning.
That's great.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're going to do is do a little music. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Melissa's got her fiddle. You got a bow on here? Yeah,
Sure,
we
got a
can
little
just
group.
have a little session.
We'll get a little
right?
session right here. A
Heck-
session, for those who don't know, is totally disorganized, unorganized gaggle of musicians,
Yeah,
but usually a leader. And the leader was Peavy, and he set the tone.
our fearless leader.
Fearless leader.
Yeah.
And it was something because he'd have the better players. Well, if you played any instrument, you were just a kid and wanted to play, what he'd do is he'd sit you in the back and you'd play along. Then as you got a little better, he'd move you up
Yeah.
and move you up. So the day came when you got to sit in the front row with PB and Claudine and Jean. And what a thing for some kid that started out, scratch, 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 one of his students to end up, or any kid really, to end up. So thanks for watching this, guys. This will be on YouTube. You'll hear all about it, and it's going to be part of this series we're going to put together. We're taping all this, and it's going to be a lot. It's been a lot of fun. It'll be even more. Okay, let's put the group
Thank
together.
you, Mike.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.